What happens when an arrogant CEO sells a rusted, non-running Porsche from her late grandfather's estate for $2,000, only for a quiet single father to discover an $8 million secret hidden inside its aluminum frame? Marcus Vance was a master fabricator raising his 6-year-old daughter on honest labor. Eleanor Reed thought she was simply clearing out useless garage junk to focus on a high-stakes corporate merger. But when 20 minutes under the lift uncovers a lost racing chassis and sealed historical patent deeds, one man's unyielding integrity shatters a corporate conspiracy, rewriting 2 lives. Before we step onto the sunlit floor of Vance Custom Restoration, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, tap the notification bell, and leave a comment below letting us know where in the world you are tuning in from today. Your support helps us share grounded, powerful stories about master craftsmanship, unyielding integrity, and the strength found in genuine devotion. Now let us begin. The dry autumn sun shone brightly over the rolling timber hills of Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Outside the rusty iron gates of the historic Reed estate, a cool, crisp breeze rustled through the crimson oak leaves, casting long golden shadows across the dry gravel driveway. Inside the dusty, damp carriage barn at the rear of the property, 36-year-old Eleanor Reed stood with her arms crossed tightly over her charcoal blazer. Eleanor was the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of Reed Aerospace and Precision Dynamics, a multi-billion-dollar defense and industrial engineering firm founded by her late grandfather, Arthur Reed. She was a woman accustomed to high-stakes boardrooms, custom wool suits, and absolute efficiency. But today, she was physically and emotionally exhausted. For 6 weeks, she had been fighting a hostile corporate takeover led by her firm's chief technology officer, Dr. Richard Hayes. To satisfy estate tax deadlines and liquidate non-essential assets, Eleanor was clearing out her grandfather's long-forgotten storage barn. Standing in the dim center of the dusty concrete floor was a low, oxidized metal shape covered by a rotting canvas tarp. "Mr. Vance," Eleanor stated, her voice a cool, controlled alto that carried a sharp edge of impatience. "I don't have time to haggle. My late grandfather bought this non-running project car at a liquidation auction in 1968. It has 0 engine, no interior, no paperwork, and the aluminum body is dented and corroded. The estate scrap team offered $800 for the scrap metal weight." Standing opposite the car was 34-year-old Marcus Vance. Marcus was a broad-shouldered man built like a concrete foundation, with calloused hands, short dark hair silvered neatly at the temples, and calm, observant steel-gray eyes. He wore dark denim work pants, scuffed steel-toed leather boots, and a heavy navy canvas work jacket with Vance Restoration and metalwork embroidered over his chest pocket. Walking beside him, holding his left hand tightly, was his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily wore a bright yellow cardigan over denim overalls, holding a small plush rabbit, her dark eyes marveling at the vintage automotive tools hanging on the barn walls. Marcus was an independent metal fabricator and master vintage coach builder. For years ago, after his wife passed away, Marcus had walked away from a high-salaried position as lead aerospace prototype fabricator to open a small restoration shop so he could be home every afternoon to raise his daughter. Marcus walked slowly around the low vehicle. He didn't look at the oxidized dark blue paint or the layer of bird droppings covering the hood. His trained eyes scanned the structural proportions of the bodywork. He ran his calloused fingers along the hand-hammered inner wheel arches and the lightweight tubular steel space frame chassis visible beneath the torn belly pan. Marcus paused, his heart giving a subtle, rhythmic thud against his ribs. This isn't a fiberglass kit car, Marcus realized instantly. This is hand-shaped 0.050-inch aluminum coachwork over a seamless 1.5-inch seamless steel tube space frame. "It's an old Porsche shell," Marcus said calmly, keeping his baritone voice smooth and unhurried. 1950s era. It's severely oxidized, the front suspension is seized, and rebuilding a hand-hammered aluminum chassis takes hundreds of hours of metal shaping. Eleanor let out a dry, cynical sigh, checking her platinum wristwatch. "I need this barn cleared by 5 o'clock to finalize the property lease. Give me $2,000 cash. Tow it out of here right now, and the scrap is yours." Marcus didn't hesitate. He reached into his canvas jacket, pulled out a thick envelope containing 20 clean $100 bills, funds he had set aside for workshop raw materials, and handed them to Eleanor. Eleanor signed the estate bill of sale without even looking at the vehicle's serial plate, handed Marcus the brass key to the steering lock, and walked briskly back toward her luxury sedan without offering a second glance. By 2 p.m., clear sunlight streamed through the high skylights of Vance Custom Restoration, a clean, 3-bay timber workshop sitting on 2 sunlit acres near the river. The air inside smelled rich and clean, a blend of fresh cedar wood shavings, metal polishing compound, hydraulic oil, and dark roast coffee brewing on the counter. Positioned on the primary hydraulic post lift was the oxidized aluminum Porsche shell. Marcus wore a leather welding apron and protective safety glasses. Lily sat comfortably at her small wooden desk near the shop window, happily coloring in her drawing book while listening to the soft jazz playing from the shop radio. Marcus set up a high-power LED work light beneath the rear chassis frame. Using a soft brass wire brush, solvent cleaner, and a fine scraper, he gently cleared away 60 years of dried grease, road grime, and oxidized paint along the primary left engine mount crossmember. He shined his flashlight beam directly onto the bare metal. Stamped deep into the seamless steel tubing, flanked by 2 tiny hand-carved Porsche crest stamps, was a 5-digit chassis number, 5500016. Marcus went completely motionless. The brass brush froze in his hand. "My God!" Marcus whispered under his breath, his eyes wide behind his safety glasses. He wasn't staring at a common 1950s Porsche 356 or a replica kit car. He was looking at chassis number 0016, the legendary, long-lost 1955 Porsche 550 Spider Works factory prototype racer. This specific vehicle was documented in historical racing archives as the factory experimental test car driven by Huschke von Hanstein at the 1955 Mille, before mysteriously vanishing from European transport logs in 1958. Fully restored with verified matching number provenance, chassis 0016 was worth at least $5 million on the international collector market. "Dad," Lily called out sweetly from her desk. "Did you find a secret under the blue car?" "I found a piece of history, sweet pea." Marcus smiled gently, his weathered face softening as he wiped a smudge of grease from his forearm. Marcus grabbed his digital micrometer and a high-definition fiber optic borescope camera. He carefully guided the micro-camera probe into the enclosed aluminum inner sills behind the passenger firewall, a double-walled structural box unique to early factory works prototypes. As the camera feed illuminated the dark inner cavity on his wall-mounted monitor screen, Marcus noticed something entirely unexpected. Positioned inside the structural firewall box was a custom-molded, airtight aircraft-grade aluminum document container, held in place by 4 safety-wired titanium rivets. Marcus didn't force the rivets. Using a precision micro drill and a pneumatic rivet extractor, he meticulously drilled out the titanium heads without scratching the surrounding chassis tubing. He carefully lifted the heavy aluminum container out of the firewall cavity. The box was sealed with a vulcanized rubber gasket and stamped with the personal crest of Arthur Reed, Eleanor's late grandfather. Marcus set the box onto his clean wooden workbench, unlatching the twin brass clasps. Inside the container, preserved in vacuum-sealed oilskin paper, were 2 distinct items. First was an original 1958 Porsche factory certificate of authenticity and racing logbook signed by Ferry Porsche himself, certifying chassis 5500016 as a gift to Arthur Reed for his pioneering aerospace metallurgical work on early race car heat shields. Second was a thick, leather-bound corporate portfolio stamped, Reed Aerospace, original foundational patents and bearer shares. Marcus opened the portfolio. Inside were original 1958 hand-drawn engineering blueprints for a revolutionary turbine fuel injection valve, the foundational patent that generated 90% of Reed Aerospace's annual multi-billion-dollar revenue. Accompanying the blueprints were 20 physical, original Class A bearer stock certificates representing 35% of the voting equity in Reed Aerospace. Marcus scanned the accompanying legal deeds. A handwritten letter from Arthur Reed dated 1998 explained the truth. "To my granddaughter Eleanor, if you are reading this, My former business partner's successors have attempted to claim that our primary fuel injection patents were corporate property rather than my personal estate. These original bearer certificates and foundational patent deeds prove absolute private ownership. I hid them inside my favorite racing chassis to ensure no corrupt executive could ever destroy them. Marcus sat back on his wooden stool, his analytical mind processing the staggering reality. The physical 1955 Works racing chassis was worth $5 million. The original bearer certificates and foundational patent deeds inside were worth an additional $3 million in immediate dividend equity and total corporate control. The total value resting on his wooden workbench was exactly $8 million. Marcus looked at the paperwork, then at his simple wooden shop, and finally at his daughter drawing pictures near the sunlit window. He could have easily hidden the paper portfolio, restored the car over 2 years, sold the chassis quietly at a European auction, and become an extraordinarily wealthy man. No one on earth knew the documents existed inside the firewall. Marcus picked up his phone, dialed the main executive number for Reed Aerospace headquarters, and asked for the chief executive officer. At 4:30 p.m., the quiet gravel driveway outside Marcus's workshop crunched violently under heavy tires. A sleek black luxury sedan pulled up alongside a heavy silver utility truck. Stepping out of the sedan was Dr. Richard Hayes, the arrogant chief technology officer of Reed Aerospace. Accompanying him were 2 broad-shouldered corporate security guards wearing dark suits. Dr. Hayes had tracked Eleanor's vehicle log and learned that she had cleared out her grandfather's storage barn earlier that afternoon. Hayes walked into the warm, timber-framed workshop with an arrogant, condescending posture, taking in Marcus's denim work shirt and scuffed boots with visible contempt. "Are you Vance?" Hayes demanded flatly, adjusting his designer spectacles. Marcus stood beside his workbench, setting his wrench down calmly. "I am. Can I help you?" Hayes pulled a thick stack of $100 bills from his coat pocket, slapping them onto the wooden counter. "Eleanor Reed sold you a scrap vehicle shell from the Reed estate 3 hours ago for $2,000. Here is $5,000 cash. Leave the shop for 20 minutes while my men load the shell onto my truck." Marcus didn't touch the money. His steel-gray eyes locked onto Hayes with an immovable physical presence. "The estate bill of sale is signed, notarized, and legally filed, Doctor. The car belongs to Vance Custom Restoration." Hayes's arrogant smile faltered, replaced by a dark, dangerous scowl. "Listen to me, grease monkey. That car belonged to Arthur Reed. My legal team has reason to believe there are private corporate records stored within that estate inventory. If you attempt to hold that vehicle, I will use my corporate influence to have your shop shut down by municipal code enforcement by tomorrow morning." Marcus took 2 slow, deliberate steps forward. His broad frame completely dominated the workspace, his posture carrying the unyielding strength of a master craftsman who feared 0 corporate suits. "Get out of my shop, Dr. Hayes," Marcus said, his low baritone voice cutting through the room like iron. "And do not speak in front of my daughter again." Hayes glared at Marcus, his face turning red with anger. He looked at the heavy aluminum chassis on the lift, then at the 2 broad-shouldered guards who took a half step back, intimidated by Marcus's absolute stillness. "You're making a catastrophic mistake, Vance," Hayes sneered, turning on his heel and storming out into the sunlit driveway, his sedan speeding away in a cloud of dust. 5 minutes later, the front door chime rang softly. Stepping into the shop, looking exhausted, overwhelmed, and carrying a thin leather briefcase, was Eleanor Reed. She had driven straight from her corporate office after learning that Hayes was tracking her estate sales. "Mr. Vance," Eleanor said, her voice soft and trembling slightly with stress. "I am so sorry. Did Richard Hayes come here? He's been trying to force a board vote to remove me from the company, claiming my grandfather lost the original foundational patent deeds." Marcus offered a gentle, reassuring smile. "Sit down, Ms. Reed. Have a cup of coffee." Eleanor sat on a wooden chair near the bench, taking a hot ceramic mug from Marcus's hands. Marcus didn't offer excuses or corporate speeches. He picked up the aluminum document container from his workbench, opening the clasps, and laid the oilskin portfolio gently in Eleanor's lap. "What is this?" Eleanor asked, frowning in confusion. "Open it," Marcus suggested smoothly. Eleanor opened the leather portfolio. As her hazel eyes scanned the original 1958 Ferry Porsche certificate, the hand-drawn fuel injection blueprints, and the 20 physical Class A bearer stock certificates bearing her grandfather's signature, her breath hitched in her throat. Tears of pure, overwhelmed relief filled her eyes, spilling down her pale cheeks. "My God," Eleanor whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "These are the original foundational patent deeds. The board has been searching for these for 20 years. Hayes claimed my grandfather destroyed them before he died." She looked up at Marcus in absolute, breathless shock. "Where did you find this?" Marcus pointed toward the 1955 Porsche 550 Spider resting on the hydraulic lift. Inside a sealed, airtight aluminum firewall box behind the passenger cowl. Chassis number 5500016. It's a Lost Works factory racing prototype worth $5 million on its own. Eleanor stared at the car, then at the $8 million portfolio in her hands, and finally at Marcus. "You knew what this was," Eleanor realized, her analytical corporate mind processing his actions. "You knew the car was worth millions when you bought it for $2,000. You knew these bearer certificates were inside. You could have sold these on the private European market and never worked another day in your life." Marcus looked into her eyes with laser clarity, a clarity completely devoid of greed, posturing, or deceit. "I charge $85 an hour for my labor, Ms. Reed," Marcus said gently, his baritone voice carrying total moral authority. "I build things with my hands, and I teach my daughter that an honest name is worth more than all the gold in the world. This portfolio belonged to your grandfather, and it belongs to you." Eleanor felt a sudden, sharp tightness in her throat, a wave of profound humility and unadulterated respect washing over her soul. In a corporate world filled with executives who lied, cheated, and betrayed for stock options, the humble technician standing before her in scuffed boots possessed a soul of absolute gold. At 9 a.m. the following morning, the emergency executive board meeting of Reed Aerospace was held on the top floor of their corporate tower. Dr. Richard Hayes stood at the head of the obsidian conference table, holding a pen over the takeover documents. "As CEO, Eleanor Reed has failed to produce the foundational patent origin deeds. I move for an immediate vote to strip her executive command." The heavy mahogany doors swung open wide. Stepping into the boardroom was Eleanor Reed. She wore a tailored charcoal wool suit, her posture tall, proud, and radiant with unshakable power. Walking beside her, carrying a velvet-lined display case, was Marcus Vance, wearing a clean navy suit, his steel-gray eyes locking onto Hayes with silent, undisputed authority. Eleanor laid the certified federal audit of the bearer stock certificates and the original 1958 patent blueprints flat on the obsidian table. "You can put your pen away, Dr. Hayes," Eleanor announced clearly, her voice echoing through the silent boardroom. "The foundational patent origin deeds are verified. The 20 Class A bearer shares give my family 62% total voting control, and federal auditors are currently reviewing your office files for official fraud and corporate extortion." Dr. Hayes went deathly pale. His hands trembled violently as two federal marshals stepped through the boardroom doors, placing him under immediate arrest. 18 months later, a clear, brilliant spring sun broke over the rolling hills of Bucks County, painting the countryside in vibrant shades of emerald and gold. Situated on a sunlit 5-acre parcel overlooking the river stood Vance and Reed Historic Craft and Engineering Sanctuary, a new independent restoration center and vocational apprenticeship institute founded jointly by Marcus Vance and Eleanor Reed. Following the event in the boardroom, Eleanor had restructured Reed Aerospace, establishing a new employee trust that guaranteed fair wages and technical training for working-class mechanics, while stepping down from her corporate CEO position to partner with Marcus in managing the sanctuary. Over 60 guests, master craftsmen, local shop owners, and friends, had gathered on the sunlit lawn behind Marcus's rustic timber home for an afternoon celebration. Positioned in the center of the sunlit courtyard, gleaming like a silver jewel, was the fully restored 1955 Porsche 550 Spider Works Chassis 0016. Its hand-shaped aluminum bodywork was polished to a flawless mirror finish, its Works racing engine humming with pristine, whispering perfection. Standing beside the car, dressed in a clean dark blue flannel shirt and jeans, was Marcus Vance. Beside him stood Eleanor, wearing a soft cream linen sundress, her dark hair blowing naturally in the warm spring breeze. On her left hand, a simple platinum ring inlaid with a thin band of hand-shaped aluminum caught the afternoon sunlight. They had been married 2 weeks prior under the giant oak trees on the property. Running across the green lawn, holding a bright red kite dancing against the blue sky, was 7-year-old Lily, her joyful laughter echoing across the valley. The European Historic Racing Registry just certified Chassis 0016 as the lead museum display for the Stuttgart Grand Prix. Eleanor smiled, resting her head comfortably against Marcus's broad shoulder. "Looks like my wife is managing the racing division again," Marcus teased gently, kissing the top of her head. Eleanor looked up into his clear steel gray eyes, her face radiant with peace, joy, and unconditional love. "Do you remember what I said to you in my grandfather's barn 18 months ago, Marcus?" Eleanor asked softly. Marcus grinned, his calloused hand squeezing hers tight. "You said you didn't have time to haggle over $2,000 of scrap metal." Eleanor let out a bright, happy laugh, leaning up to kiss his cheek under the open, unbroken sky. "And you found the greatest treasure in the world," Eleanor whispered. They stood together in the sunlit doorway, watching their daughter play in the grass, holding each other tight. A home built to last forever on truth, courage, and unbroken love. True value is never measured by the price tag on an invoice, the rust on an old frame, or the size of a corporate bank account. It is forged through the quiet integrity of your skill, the courage to stand honest, and the devotion to protect what actually matters in life. Eleanor thought she was dumping $2,000 of garage junk, but Marcus showed her that the greatest master is the one who leads with a humble, devoted heart. Thank you so much for joining us for this deeply moving story today. If Marcus and Eleanor's journey touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an uplifting story. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever found an unexpected treasure or a quiet truth hidden inside a moment everyone else dismissed? Take care of yourselves, stay true to your heart, and we will see you in the next story.